Hello everyone, my name is Giacomo Lozzi and I work at Polis, the European network of cities and regions working on transport innovation. I would like to welcome you to Module 4 of Unit 4 of the first SOLUTIONSplus E-course, focusing on promotion, communication and marketing. This module will discuss how to ensure that e-mobility in cities is planned and implemented with participation of citizens and local business. Public involvement is fundamental to ensure the legitimacy and quality of decision-making. The transition towards sustainable mobility, which of course includes e-mobility, requires understanding and active support from stakeholders and the wider public. Working with stakeholders is generally considered common practice, but often only certain groups actually have a say in the planning. It is crucial to involve all relevant stakeholders throughout the planning process, addressing their specific requirements. Let's have a look at the steps and tools to involve the local community. The involvement of citizens and stakeholders is a fundamental element of a SUMP, a Sustainable Urban Mobility Plan. SUMPs are implemented to better respond to the mobility needs of people and stakeholders. Citizens and relevant stakeholders must therefore be involved at the different stages of the SUMP cycle for consultation purposes, but also to create a feeling of ownership on the process. Citizens and stakeholders from various sectors and fields are able to provide support and services in the implementation of the measures. Their involvement also helps to legitimize the planning process and enhance its quality. Only a sustainable urban mobility plan that was developed in cooperation with important stakeholders and the public will be accepted and effective in practical and financial terms. Citizens' involvement should take place throughout the SUMP cycle. It pays off to involve citizens from the start. Already when the decision to prepare a SUMP is taken, they can be informed and a group of interested citizens mobilized. But the four most important planning steps for citizen involvement are the discussion of scenario, development of visions, selection and validation of measure packages, and implementation. This is particularly valid for the introduction of e-mobility solutions. Citizens and stakeholders can not only contribute to the design of policies, but they should also be involved in the implementation phase, since they will be the ones that own and co-own e-mobility assets, as the vehicles and the charging infrastructure, and also the ones using shared e-mobility services. Moreover, for the successful deployment of e-mobility, it is required to involve the energy department of the municipality, as well as to establish a cooperation with stakeholders of the energy sector. Indeed, energy and mobility have, by and large, been two worlds apart due to little overlaps. A much closer cooperation needs to be ensured now, at all stages of the SUMP process. Stakeholders from the energy sector include, among others, grid operators, energy producers, utility companies, and charging infrastructure operators. But how does the engagement process work in practice? The planning authority needs to define the level to which citizens and stakeholders will take part in the decision-making. Several classifications have been developed over the past decades that create different levels of involvement. A widely used classification is the Inform, Consult, Involve, Collaborate and Empower scheme. As for Inform, citizens and stakeholders are provided with timely information about the outcomes of all stages of the planning development. In Consult, the planning authority informs citizens and stakeholders about the process, listens to and acknowledges concerns and provides feedback. For Involve, the planning authority, citizens and stakeholders work together continuously throughout the stages. Participants are informed about how their input specifically influences the decision. Collaborate. The planning authority invites stakeholders to directly contribute their advice and innovative ideas for concrete solutions. Finally, empower. The planning authority promises that it will implement what stakeholders or citizens decide. You can learn more about the approaches to citizen and stakeholder engagement in Unit 2 of this e-course.
Obviously, all stakeholders concerned by electromobility projects at city level do not have the same influence or importance in the deployment of these projects, and their role may change according to the scope of each project. Therefore, you need to develop a structured and flexible marketing and communication strategies in order to optimize their role and their involvement at the right time and for the right purpose. The table on the slide shows the different levels of involvement that could be expected for the participants. At the lower, informed level, their contribution deals mainly with dissemination, communication, promotion of the outcomes of the project through various channels. On the contrary, at the upper level, the empowerment level, stakeholders are fully integrated in the decision-making process and are engaged by the decisions related to the setup of the projects. As you can see, the other intermediate levels relate to more or less engagement of the stakeholders in the project. Relationships are established accordingly to each level of participation, and related communication tools towards stakeholders are also adapted to the expected interactions. To formalize the strategy you will develop towards specific stakeholders, you can draw a mapping of them according to their interest and influence on your subject. The diagram on the slide illustrates an example of classification for the deployment of an electro-urban logistic project. Obviously, local authorities, logistic operators and energy suppliers are the key actors in such a project and must reach a joint agreement on the future organization of logistics in the city, while citizens, on the bottom left of the slide, essentially concerned by the transport of their individual goods, need only to be globally informed to understand the traffic modification that will be implemented. And you can see that in this example, all the other actors have been positioned: the transporters, the receivers of goods, as well as organizers, creators of flows, the companies dealing with digital services, or even the local manufacturers of 2 or 3 wheelers, or providers of various services for vehicle and components.
Each phase of the sum cycle process has different objectives. Thus, different techniques and methods are required. Once the public authority has decided which stakeholders should be engaged and at which level, they have to select and use the most effective tools and methods to do that. This diagram illustrates them according to the preferable scope of the engagement process. In the next lectures, we will look at these more in detail. Here, we will just mention that they range from social media posts and flyers to inform to problem analysis workshops to collaborate, passing by questionnaires, surveys, interviews, and crowdsourced data. Let's look at a couple of examples of citizens and stakeholder engagement initiatives linked to e-mobility planning and implementation. This initiative is a part of the Rolex project, and the goal is to decide on what a local energy community should look like in 4 different Flemish pilot sites, based on the objectives and needs of the stakeholders that will potentially be part of this energy community, including citizens, companies, public institutions, among others. The initiative is being carried out by BUV Mobi since 2019 and is happening in Brussels and Flanders in Belgium. The target citizens are the residents. The needs and objectives of the directly impacted citizens and other stakeholders is taken into account. It is an open process in which they are briefed on each other's motives, which creates empathy on all sides when a consensus has to be reached to make a decision. On a different note, the region of Central Macedonia in Greece, specifically the Division of Environment and Deployment, developed the citizen engagement initiative for Thessaloniki called Voltaro in 2017, which is still ongoing. The objective of this initiative is to engage citizens and the various stakeholders in sustainable and intelligent mobility. Specifically, it is focused on e-mobility and it has an expo format to illustrate new technologies. Thessaloniki is in fact one of the first Mediterranean cities which welcomed the e-scooters, and more than 3,000 people are already actively engaged each year. The engagement of citizens was mainly conducted through surveys and interviews. On a different note, according to a recent study, 54% of Austrians could envisage switching to an electric car in the coming years. To this end, Wien Energy is already expanding Vienna's network of charging points to ensure that charging will be possible throughout the city and in the future. As we heard in Module 2, having well-developed, publicly available infrastructure is an important condition when it comes to convincing drivers to switch to electric cars. Wien Energy is already involving citizens in its work to increase the number of charging stations in the city with a view to boosting the population's level of acceptance in respect to e-mobility. In the course of this project, residents of Vienna were given the opportunity to participate in the expansion drive by means of investment packages, thereby playing a role in the mobility revolution. The project has been a success so far. More than 8,000 investment packages were sold instead of the 2,500 which were initially planned. This means that citizens have invested a total of 2 million euros in works to expand the charging station infrastructure. Yet another example, we talked about citizens, but what about freight stakeholders? Lozzi is a Transport for London project that is driving the adoption of low-emission commercial vehicles to help improve air quality. It is a 5-year industry-led collaborative program that brings together fleet operators, central and local government, other public sector organizations, vehicle manufacturers, and refueling and recharging suppliers to improve air quality and reduce CO2 emissions. The initiative has been preparing the freight industry for the introduction of the ultra-low emission zone and supporting boroughs and transport operators in upgrading their fleets to cleaner vehicles and alternative fuels. The initiative also has a series of working groups established to provide expert advice and guidance on the direction of the program. Now, let's virtually travel to Kisumu in Kenya to hear how the participation and engagement of citizens and stakeholders works in practice for what concerns the integration of e-mobility in the SOLP.
My first question to you would be, would you introduce yourself and your role at the county government?
Thank you, Judy. I'm Bernard Otieno Juang. I'm the head of environment at the city. I was also the coordinator of the launching and planning for the launching of the Sustainable Mobility Plan in Kisumu, which we did on February 16, 2021. And it was a successful one.
Okay, thank you very much. So my second question is, why did the county see that it is important to work on this Sustainable Mobility Plan?
Actually, as you know, that planning for the transport is very key for any development of the urban places. And if you look at the kind of, in Africa, more so specifically in Kenya, and I may talk about the Nairobi, you can see the mess that in the Nairobi in terms of traffic arrangement and so on. So as a Kisumu, we decided that we don't want to get into much more mess, and we need to start planning for our mobility, to Sustainable Mobility Plan in Kisumu, and that's why we find it very noble, and we liaise with the various stakeholders like the UN Habitat Mobility Unit, ITDP, and other stakeholders to ensure that at least we engage and enlighten our citizenry on the importance of planning for this Sustainable Mobility Plan in Kisumu. That's why we find it very, very, very important to do that, so that for the people to appreciate the non-motorized aspect of it and having e-mobility in Kisumu. The major problem in the urban areas is now is about the climate change, which is a global problem. So and this is also is being brought by the fumes that are being produced by the motors that are operating within the urban spaces. So we find it is very important if we can use the e-mobility so that we reduce the pollution, the air pollution that is rampant in urban areas. So we did that, and we invited major stakeholders who also came and displayed the various electric motor vehicles and motorbikes, so that the business community can appreciate and adopt that. That's why we find it's very important to reduce the pollution that is very rampant in Africa, and to reduce the climate change that is bringing a lot of global warming and other environmental effects. Actually, we use various methods of communicating to the Kisumu. One of them was the local media, where we went to the local radio stations. We talked to the people. We tell them the importance of this e-mobility plan. We also use the print media. We also use the TVs and so on. We also use the brochures and the banners to communicate to the people. And the outcome was amazing. The turnout was very great. People came in large numbers. They witnessed, we trained, we talked to them, and they really appreciated it. Actually, as I said earlier, it was a process. Started very early, way back, some years back. So we were engaging with the people. We were going around to the community, where they were also getting their views on the importance of what they need to be included into that plan. We also engaged the politician, the business community, and almost everybody, even the top management of this county government of Kisumu, so that they also which they did and gave us their views, which was also incorporated in the plan on how it can be implemented sustainably. Actually, what I said is that before they come up with the mobility plan, they need to engage all the stakeholders so that it can be a collective document which is agreeable to everyone with everyone, so that we can have the people can adopt this and own it with the way we did it in Kisumu. Because without engaging the public, the sector stakeholders, then I think it cannot succeed so much. Kisumu one succeed because we engage almost everybody. It was a process where everybody, their views of all the people in Kisumu were incorporated, and they really appreciated and acknowledged the plan as theirs. So that's why it was accepted. So everybody, the stakeholders engagement is very key. The views of all the stakeholders must be incorporated. So anybody who wants to succeed in that, they have to do, that is the way to go.
For this module, we use very valuable material from the SUMP guidelines and the projects the Citium East Smart Tech Challenge. If you want to read more about these and what was mentioned in this lecture, make sure to check out the list of additional reading materials that we have prepared for you. Thank you, and until next time.